Hey everybody, Kane with Content Harmony here, and today I'm going to walk you through how to use the topic analysis tab of your keyword reports. So I've got a few different reports here to walk through. There's a couple things to understand about the topic analysis tab. The first one is that most of our focus is on the overlapping keywords. And overlapping keywords are they are what they sound like once you understand the data source. We look at all of your top ranking competitors, and then we find which keywords overlap. And then we tell you how many of your competitors are using that term and how many times per page they use it. So if we search for a query like responsive web design examples, 70% of competitors are using the phrase responsive web design or the variation responsive web designs, just the plural, and they use it an average of 4 times per page. Now here's another one. 48% of competitors use the phrase website or website, and they use it an average of 7 times. Now, this is pretty obvious if you know anything about responsive web design. If you read an article, it's going to talk about how your website looks on mobile devices and how you use media queries based upon the screen size to adjust the device for mobile use. Like, it's all pretty self-explanatory, but that also means Google knows what is supposed to be on the page for something that's ranking for this topic. So if your goal is to rank for this topic and you don't have the majority of these phrases on the page, you're probably not going to look very relevant to Google. So that does a couple things for us. One is it makes it very easy to help writers understand, look, all of these need, the majority of these need to be mentioned on the page for it to be about that. But when you paste in a draft, it also will allow us to grade the content when we release our content grading function. So the other thing you can do with these is you can highlight the stuff that really is more critical for writers. So let's say I'm doing this for my responsive web design examples. Obviously, we're going to mention responsive web design. I want to talk about users on mobile devices and what they see. I want to talk about media queries based on screen size. I want to talk about mobile phones, and I want to talk about flexible layouts and how they shift. I want to talk about small screens, sure. Best practices, maybe. Tablets, yes. So I'll leave it at that. Now, we also have related searches down here, and those are related topics according to Google. So if you scroll to the top and look at a live search result, these are the related searches down here at the bottom. We copy those right over here, so they're available for you to highlight. And they're useful as subtopics. They're not always things that are directly relevant. Sometimes they're adjacent, but responsive web design examples with source code, we should include some code examples in our post. Same thing here. And responsive web design template, yeah, if there's some templates that we can link to or reference, that would be good. Techniques, that's how we'll talk about media queries. And maybe we'll give a step-by-step, or maybe that's a separate piece of content. Now, there's one other thing we're going to be adding down here that you can't see yet, and that's called also ranked for keywords. And so if overlapping keywords are all of the terms that show up on your competitors, then also ranked for keywords are the keywords that those competitors also rank for, in addition to responsive web design examples. So somebody that ranks for responsive web design examples, you might be able to see over in the competitors tab, we give you a little bit of a hint to this data. They also rank for responsive web designs. And let's see, W3 Schools just ranks for the phrase responsive. And so what we'll do is take a look at all of the 487 keywords we know this page is ranking for, all of the 278 keywords that we know this page is ranking for, and we'll tell you which ones that most of your competitors rank for. And that gives you a lot of power, because then you can make sure to include those related terms in your content. And that's a little bit different than these, because if you write the phrase mobile devices, you're not going to suddenly rank for mobile devices. But if you make sure to use some of these also ranked for terms that we'll be adding in, those are very, very clearly things that you could suddenly begin ranking for with this same piece of content. So those are critical too. Now, all of these will show up over in the content brief underneath what keywords and topics are recommended or required. And the one thing I would add here is it's good to tell your writers whether or not they have to use all of the terms a certain number of times, or whether you're just giving them like highlights for things that are subtopics. So in this example, I've said all highlighted terms below should occur naturally at least once in the article, but likely they'll occur more than once. Now, I know that naturally they will use some of those other terms we were looking at on the other page. But once we actually get to the point where we're ready to grade a draft, then we can go ahead and clean up some of those little missing bits and pieces as part of the optimization process. So that's how we're using the topic tab. If you look at other phrases, you'll generally see pretty comparable results. Now, if we get a really, really weird keyword sometimes where very few competitors have overlapping terms, we will actually show you phrases that only show up on one competitor. If you spot one of those, let me know, because we've programmed it in just to make sure that you have something available on those rare instances, but I have not yet seen a keyword where we haven't had a decent number of competitors with overlapping terms here. Another fun one here, things to do in Seattle. You can clearly see Pike Place Market, Space Needle, Seattle Center, Puget Sound, Seattle Aquarium. Like, this quickly becomes a very cool list or way of automating, the list of things that you should be adding to a piece like that. And this can quickly get dropped right into, your H2 structure of your post. Visit West Seattle, it's a great place. And feed into other things like that. So hopefully that is a little bit helpful on how you can use the topic analysis. Most of this is kind of reminders, but will really help clients and writers understand why they need to be including certain terms throughout a piece. Thanks.